Is there any story
Well, we've
that
got
you've
other
never
stories,
told?
but
Is
it's
there
like,
any story you've never told that, even without mentioning names, that you've always wanted to tell
well,
that would tell us about those times in baseball?
yeah, there are some. And when I asked players for stories for my book, I told them I didn't want any stories that would get anybody arrested or anybody divorced. I mean, the biggest problem is I know a lot of stories about everybody, but everybody knows a lot of stories about me too. So you've got to take all of this with a grain of salt. None of us are squeaky clean. Not to mention the player's name, but Brad Corbett, he was more fun to interview in 2005 sitting in his office because he'd tell a story and then he'd go, "Oh, you can't publish that." Then he'd tell another story and say, "Oh, you can't publish that." One of the ones he said you couldn't publish, and again, I won't mention the player's name, but this player came up to him in Toronto and said, "Brad, I can't play today." And Brad says, "What's wrong?" He said, I just can't play today. He says, "You sick?" He said, "Nah, I just can't play today." He said, "Well, what the hell's wrong?" He looked at him and he said, "I got one wife down the right field line and one wife down the left field line. I can't play today."
And I'll bet there's more stories like that than we would imagine. I mean, where things like
Well,
that
I'll tell
happen
you what,
every game.
there was another one where we'd go to different cities and we'd see this ball player with a wife and a couple kids, and they weren't the same wife and kids. And so I eventually said to him, I said, "Hey, man, how many wives have you got?" And again, just being a smartass. And he looked at me just as concerned and says, I've only got three. You know, this
Only
is
three.
this is my only three. And Jim Gantner, it was really funny in spring training one year in Milwaukee. Raleigh Fingers, who had been married several times, uh, said at the end of workout, he said, "I got to go to the airport and pick up the wife and kids." And Jimmy Gantner, the second baseman, made a pool. Which wife and which kids? We all put in $5 guessing.
Did you ever
You
win?
know?
Did you ever win the pool?
No, no, never won the pool. I hadn't been there long enough to get the inside skinny on all this.
Well, here's a couple things that come to mind right away. You are quoted in a couple of instances with two famous quotes. And having been around baseball and been around baseball players for a lot of years, I have heard both quotes before. But we need to find out if they are absolutely correct. First of all, there's the quote of, "I'm working on a new pitch. It's called a strike." Did you actually say that?
I did. I said it to Randy Galloway of the Dallas Morning News. We're in spring training, and they're always around in spring training looking for quotes and writing on their pad, and always have the pad in the back pocket. And I went to Galloway. He says, "Emu, you got a quote for me?" I says, "Yeah." I says, "I'm working on this new pitch, and I've almost got it perfected." Boy, he pulls out his pad and he starts writing. He says, "What is it? Curveball? Changeup?" I said, "A strike," and turned around and left. And poor Galloway is sitting there like, "You asshole." It was just fun to bait the press.
You're not supposed to do that. We're your friends. No, we're not. Uh,
Oh yeah. Well, hey, I do it to my friends. What can I say?
okay.
The worst one I did was to Paul Hagan, who at the time was with the Fort Worth Star Telegram. And in '80, I had hyperextended my elbow in spring training and was trying to pitch, and I was getting killed. And they didn't put me on a DL because they were using me as bait in the late innings, hoping that the other manager would make some position changes or use a pinch hitter to get him out of the lineup, thinking that I was going to come in. And Paul Hagan come up to me and he said, "Emu, is your arm hurting you?" And I said, "No, no, my arm feels great." So he left, and again, the writers are all trying to scoop each other. Well, about 2 days later, they put me on a DL, And Hagen just comes up just pissed. I mean, talking about my mother's heritage and everything, and says, "Asshole, you told me there was nothing wrong with your arm." And I looked at him, I said, "Paul, there wasn't a damn thing wrong with my arm, but my goddamn elbow was killing me." He had no sense of humor. Absolutely no sense of humor.
Then the second quote that comes up is where you said, "I told him I wasn't tired. He told me no, but the outfielders sure are." Did you say that, and put that in
Yeah,
perspective?
1968, we're in Rock Hill, South Carolina, Rock Hill Spinners, my first year in A ball, low A ball. And we had a manager there named Pinky May. Merrill May was the gentleman's name. He was probably about 5'8", 5'9". Had played third base for Pittsburgh in the 50s. His son, Milt May, caught for the Pirates, I believe, in the 70s. Yeah. And Pinky was, I mean, just what a young kid first time away from home needed. You know, he knew when to pat you on the back. He knew when to kick you in the ass. Just a real father type figure. And it's one of those nights where I've got a good moving fastball. It's moving to left field and right field and dead center, you know. And about the third inning, we're down about 4-0, and Pinky comes out to the mound. Always wore this big heavy jacket and had his hands in the pocket of the jacket. And I always figured he put the hands in his jacket so he wouldn't strangle us when he came out to the mound, you know. And so Pinky comes out, big old wad of chewing tobacco in his mouth, and he says, "Kearney, I got to take you out." And I'm up here and he's down here. And I said, "But Pinky, I'm not tired." Pinky looks at me and says, "Yeah, but the goddamned outfielders are." I mean, it's like, it's been 50 years and I still haven't got a comeback for that one.
So I'm going to take you down memory lane.
These are the subtleties. These are the subtleties to me that I remember best about the game and made the game worthwhile. Not really striking out Parker and Foster in the 77 All-Star game after Palmer had given up a couple deep ones. You know, that was great. I mean, if I can tell one more story there, you know,
you can tell as many stories as you would like, young man.
we had been in Boston about 2 weeks earlier before the 77 All-Star game. And Frank Robinson brought me in the game. We were up a run, and Boston had guys on second and third, 2 outs, first base was open. And Fisk was up. And I had trouble getting Fisk out because he could hit the inside pitch. But behind him on the on-deck circle was Jimmy Rice. And I had pretty good luck with Jimmy on the inside half the plate. So I didn't want to pitch to Fisk. But being a rookie, I knew Frank Robinson wasn't, well, not a rookie, but just a couple years in major leagues, knowing Frank Robinson wasn't going to let me walk him if I asked. So what do? Well, Fisk never fell down when you threw inside. He would just roll his front shoulder in and take a fastball off the back and take his first base. Fisk was tougher than hell. And so I wind up, I throw him a 95-mile-an-hour gasser, hit him in the middle of the back. It's a dead ball. No players can advance. Fisk goes to first. The runner on third is a tying run. The runner on second is a winning run. First base means nothing. And Jimmy Rice comes up. Well, in 4 pitches, I was able to rush 3 of them by Jimmy on the inside half the plate and get him out. Won the game. Well, next series, we go to New York. And I'm walking behind the batting cage, and Billy Martin was going to be our all-star coach, as the Yankees had won the American League the year before. And Billy's walking behind the batting cage and says to me, he says, "Keep pitching good, kid. I might pick you for the all-star team." Well, I'm toast for the rest of the game. I mean, I'm worthless. And I go home. I don't even tell the wife he said that because, you know, if I didn't get picked, it was going to be devastating. Well, about 10 days later, I'm picked for the All-Star game. Eckersley and I got picked from Cleveland. So we go to New York, do the banquet, and about 1:30, Eck and I go to the ballpark, man. I mean, we're young kids walking around the Yankee clubhouse. And, just looking, here's my locker next to my good friend Hank Aaron, my good friend Reggie Jackson. It's like a kid in a candy store with a credit card. So the game starts, and I'm out in the bullpen, and Palmer, who was Cy Young the year before, is starting, and he gives up 3 runs in the first inning. And the phone rings, and Martin says, "Get Kern up." And I was sitting there thinking, I'm having a good time here. I really don't have to pitch. But I run down to the plate instead of the mound to warm up. I am so excited. I get on the mound in about 3 pitches. I'm throwing 120. And Palmer gets out of the jam, gets people out in the second. And then in the third inning, he gives up a dinger, I think, first pitch to Garvey. And Martin calls down and says, "Get Kern up. I'm going to go out and stall, give him a little time to get ready. He's in the game." So I'm out there hyperventilating, getting ready. And I get into the game, and Fisk is catching. Well, before the game, when Fisk is dressing, you see this big old yellow spot in the middle of his back where some asshole hit him a couple days before. And not thinking about it, kind of chuckling to myself, when we were dressing. Well, we get out in the game, and Fisk comes out and says, "What do you throw, kid?" I said, "Fastball." He said, "Okay." And he turns around and goes back. First guy to come up to bat is Dave Parker. 6'6", 260, just like Don Baylor. You can see muscle definition through the shirt. And very much like Winfield, he's only got about 6 acres of arms. He can stand way off the plate and rake the outside half the plate. Well, Fisk is back behind the plate, and the first thing he does is call a slider. And I shook my head and said, No, don't throw a slider. Threw down fastball. From Yankee Stadium, from the plate to the screen is 120 feet. I wound up, threw the pitch, only about 120 mile an hour, and hit the screen in the mid-air, didn't even hit the ground. Fisk didn't even jump. He just laid his glove back for another ball from the umpire. And you can see Parker get out, look at Fisk, look at me, and you can see him look at Fisk, and you can see him kind of say, "What's wrong with this white boy out here, man? Damn." So I get the ball back, and you know the camera is dead in your face. You got 50,000 people in the stands. You got 70 million looking at your mug, and all I can think of is bring it down a couple clicks. And I don't even want to look at Billy Martin over here, And so I wind up 4 pitches later, I strike out Parker, throw the ball by him. Next guy up is Foster. Well, he didn't throw the ball by Foster.
No.
Real simple. 5 pitches later, I blew Foster away with 3 fastballs. Next guy up is Lazinski. And Bull, is built like a fire plug. Only about that wide across the shoulders, that thick through the chest.
Now, he was the epitome of the word dense.
Oh, yes. And not a big strike zone. Bull wasn't 6 foot maybe. And it's amazing. When you're 6'5", anybody under 6'2" is a little guy, so I'll apologize for that. But Bull gets up, and you can see him really trying to gauge it in his practice swings. Well, I throw the first pitch on the outside half the plate, and he hits it right on the screws, except it's over the first base dugout. And you can see it going through the stands, ping, 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 hitting off people's heads as it goes up. And then you see Bull get back in there and, again, trying to speed up the swing a bit. And Fisk calls a fastball away, and I shook him off. And very hesitantly, he threw down a fastball in. And I said, yes. So I wind up and I throw this. It rattled a gun. They went to 99 at the time and blew off the guns. Bull got halfway around, broke his bat in half, 2-hopper to second base, throws him out. I'm out of the inning, and I run up the runway into the clubhouse, get my coat, come back down, and I hear the most beautiful sound I've ever heard in my life. It's the PA announcer saying, "Now pinch hitting for Jim Kern." I mean, it was awesome. I'm coming back.
You didn't want to get out there again.
Screw this up. Yeah, I didn't screw this up. I don't have to run my act back out there. I mean, this is a big day. I'm really floating. I come over and on the bench and not thinking about it, I sit next to Fisk. And Fist looks at me and pats me on the leg and says, "Pretty good job, kid." I said, "Thank you, thank you." And he looks at me right in the face and says, "You can throw that fastball just about where you want to, can't you?" And I went, "Most of the time."